I never thought a simple flight home would turn into the most humiliating and ultimately satisfying experience of my life. But sometimes life has a way of teaching people lessons they'll never forget, and this airport Karen was about to learn hers the hard way. It started the moment I approached Gate 23 at Denver International Airport. I was exhausted, carrying my worn military duffel bag and a small carry-on, just trying to find a quiet spot to sit before my flight to San Antonio. I'd been traveling for 18 hours straight, coming back from a classified assignment overseas that I couldn't discuss with anyone. All I wanted was to get home to my daughter Emma, who was graduating from high school in 2 days. I'd missed so much of her senior year already. That's when I saw her. Mid-50s, perfectly styled blonde. Hair, designer handbag, clutched like a weapon. And that particular expression that screams, "I need to speak to your manager." She was standing near the priority boarding area, tapping her manicured nails against her phone case and glaring at everyone around her like we were personally ruining her day just by existing. I found an empty seat 3 rows away from the gate counter and settled in, pulling out my phone to text Emma. "Flight delayed 30 minutes, sweetheart. Still planning to make it home tonight. Can't wait to see you walk across that stage." I was typing when I heard that sharp, entitled voice that cuts through airport noise like nails on a chalkboard. "Excuse me, you need to move. That's my seat." I looked up to see the blonde woman standing over me, hands on her hips, lips pursed in the universal expression of someone who's never been told no in her life. I glanced around the gate area. There had to be at least 40 empty seats scattered throughout the waiting area. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but these are general seating areas. There aren't assigned seats here," I said politely, gesturing to the rows of empty chairs around us. "There are plenty of other seats available." Her face flushed red immediately. "Don't you dare tell me about airport procedures. I've been flying first class for 20 years, and I always sit in that exact spot. It gives me the best view of the boarding process." I remained calm, something the Army had trained me to do, even in the most stressful situations. "I understand, but as you can see, there are many other seats with the same view. I'd be happy to move if this was assigned seating, but it's not." That's when she really lost it. "Do you know who I am? My husband is the regional sales director for Morrison Industries. We spend over $50,000 a year on flights, and I will not be disrespected by some ... She looked me up and down, taking in my simple jeans, plain t-shirt, and obviously worn travel bag. Some vagrant who probably doesn't even belong in this terminal. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I'd spent the last 3 months in Eastern Europe, working with local military forces to prevent a situation that could have escalated into something much worse. I'd slept in bunkers, eaten MREs for weeks, and hadn't seen my daughter's face except through a scratchy video call in over a month. I was tired, emotionally drained, and just trying to get home to the most important moment of her young life. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to catch my flight home," I said quietly. "I really don't want any trouble." But Airport Karen was just getting started. She whipped out her phone and started taking pictures of me. "Security needs to see this. We can't have people like you loitering in first-class areas. This is exactly what's wrong with airports these days. No standards, no control." A few other passengers were starting to stare now, and I felt that familiar knot in my stomach that came with unwanted attention. After years in military intelligence, I'd learned to blend in, to avoid scenes, to stay under the radar. This was my worst nightmare. "Ma'am, I'm sitting in general seating with a valid boarding pass," I said, pulling out my phone to show her my mobile ticket. "I have every right to be here." She barely glanced at my screen. "I don't care what that fake ticket says. Someone like you doesn't fly first class. You probably stole that phone." That's when she marched over to the gate counter, her heels clicking aggressively against the tile floor. I watched as she began gesturing wildly at the young gate agent, a woman who couldn't have been older than 25 and was clearly new to dealing with difficult passengers. "I need security called immediately," Karen announced, loudly enough for half the gate area to hear. "There's a suspicious person harassing passengers and refusing to move from first-class seating. He's probably not even supposed to be in this terminal." The gate agent looked confused and overwhelmed. "Ma'am, if you could just lower your voice, I can look into." "Don't tell me to lower my voice. I pay your salary through my ticket purchases, and I demand action now." I could see the young woman's hands shaking as she picked up the phone. My heart sank as I realized this was actually escalating beyond a simple misunderstanding. I stood up and walked calmly to the counter, hoping to defuse the situation. "Excuse me," I said to the gate agent. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just waiting for my flight like everyone else." Karen immediately spun around. "See, he's following me now. This is harassment. Call the police." The gate agent looked between us, clearly not knowing what to do. "Sir, could I see your boarding pass?" I handed over my phone, showing my mobile ticket clearly. The agent's expression relaxed slightly as she scanned the information. "You're in seat 2A, Mr. Rodriguez. That's first class." Karen's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. Look at him. Does he look like someone who can afford first class? It's obviously a mistake or fraud." The humiliation was starting to burn in my chest. I'd served my country for 15 years, earned my rank through dedication and sacrifice, and now I was being treated like a criminal because I didn't fit someone's narrow definition of what a first-class passenger should look like. "Ma'am," the gate agent said hesitantly, "his ticket appears to be valid. I can't ask him to move unless then check it again. Run it through your system. Call your supervisor." Karen's voice was getting shriller by the minute. "I've seen this before, people using stolen credit cards or fake tickets to get upgrades they don't deserve." Other passengers were openly staring now, and I could hear whispered conversations starting around the gate area. Some people were pulling out their phones, probably to record the drama that was unfolding. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid. But Airport Karen wasn't done with her performance. She turned to address the growing crowd of onlookers. "This is exactly what's wrong with security these days. They let anyone into the premium areas without proper verification. We're all in danger when standards aren't maintained." A few passengers nodded along, apparently convinced by her theatrical display. I felt completely alone in that moment, surrounded by strangers who were ready to believe the worst about me based on nothing more than one woman's loud accusations. The gate agent was clearly in over her head. "I'll need to call my supervisor," she said, reaching for her radio. "Could you both please step aside while I sort this out?" I moved to the side willingly, but Karen positioned herself right in front of the counter, blocking other passengers who were trying to ask legitimate questions about the delayed flight. "I'm not moving until this situation is resolved," she declared. "And I want to speak to the airport police, TSA, and whoever is in charge of passenger screening. This is a security breach." That's when I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. Captain Sarah Mitchell from the 149th Intelligence Squadron was standing near the window, still in her dress uniform, obviously traveling on official business. We'd worked together 2 years ago on a joint operation, and she was one of the most respected officers I'd ever served with. She caught my eye and frowned, clearly recognizing that I was in some kind of trouble. Sarah made her way through the crowd, and I felt a small wave of relief, knowing that at least one person in the area knew who I really was. But before Sarah could reach me, airport security arrived. 2 officers, looking serious and official, walked straight up to where I was standing. "Sir, we've had a complaint about suspicious behavior," the older officer said. "Could we see some identification?" I handed over my military ID along with my driver's license, hoping this would end the misunderstanding quickly. But Karen immediately inserted herself into the conversation. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. This man has been harassing passengers, refusing to follow airline policy, and I have serious concerns about how he obtained that first-class ticket. He's been aggressive and threatening." The accusation of being threatening hit me like a physical blow. In all my years of service, I'd never been accused of intimidating civilians. I'd built my career on being the calm, analytical presence in crisis situations. "Ma'am, I haven't threatened anyone," I said quietly to the officers. "I've been sitting quietly, waiting for my flight." One of the security officers was examining my military ID carefully. "Your active duty?" "Yes, sir." "Master Sergeant Miguel Rodriguez, 149th Intelligence Squadron." "I'm traveling home on personal leave." But Karen wasn't about to let facts get in the way of her narrative. He could have stolen that ID. People fake military credentials all the time. You need to verify this through proper channels. The security officers exchanged glances, and I could see they were taking her accusations seriously. The older officer spoke into his radio, requesting additional verification of my identity. I felt my stomach drop as I realized this was spiraling completely out of control. "This is ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "You can call the base directly to confirm my identity. My commanding officer is Colonel James Patterson. The number is—" "Don't tell us how to do our jobs," Karen interrupted. "Officers, he's being evasive and trying to control the narrative." That's exactly what someone with something to hide would do. More passengers were gathering now, creating a semicircle around the unfolding drama. I could hear people taking sides in whispered conversations. Some seemed to be buying into Karen's performance, while others looked uncomfortable with how aggressively she was pursuing the situation. A middle-aged man in a business suit stepped forward. "I've been watching this whole thing," he said to the security officers. "That gentleman hasn't done anything wrong. He's been completely respectful throughout this entire confrontation." Karen whirled around to face him. "Are you part of this? Are you traveling together? Because that would explain why you're defending him." "Lady, I've never seen him before in my life," the businessman replied. "But I know harassment when I see it, and you're the one causing all the problems here." How dare you? Karen's voice reached a new octave. I'm a paying customer who deserves safe travel. I won't be silenced by some conspiracy of people trying to protect someone who doesn't belong here. That's when Captain Mitchell finally pushed through the crowd, still in her dress, blues with her ribbons and insignia clearly visible. She commanded immediate attention from everyone in the area. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, she said formally, offering me a crisp salute that I instinctively returned. I didn't expect to see you here, soldier. The entire atmosphere changed in that instant. Karen's face went pale as she realized that my military credentials were being publicly verified by someone whose authority was unmistakable. Captain Mitchell, I replied, relief flooding through my voice. Good to see you, ma'am. She turned to the security officers, her bearing commanding and professional. Officers, I can personally vouch for Master Sergeant Rodriguez. He's been serving with distinction for 15 years and is currently on approved leave. If you need official verification, I can provide you with direct contact information for his commanding officer. One of the security officers nodded respectfully. Thank you, Captain. We appreciate the verification. But Karen wasn't ready to give up. Even faced with clear evidence that she'd been completely wrong, she doubled down on her attacks. This could all be fake, she said desperately. Military impersonation is a federal crime. You can't just take their word for it. Captain Mitchell's expression hardened. Ma'am, are you seriously suggesting that I, a commissioned officer in the United States Air Force, am participating in some kind of fraud conspiracy? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Karen's mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. Even she seemed to realize that she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The security officers were clearly ready to end this situation. Ma'am, the older officer said to Karen, it appears there's been a misunderstanding. The gentleman's credentials check out and his ticket is valid. Is there anything else we can help you with? But Karen's pride wouldn't let her back down gracefully. This is unacceptable. I want to speak to someone higher up the chain. I want a full investigation into how this man obtained that ticket and why airport security didn't properly verify his identity from the beginning. That's when I decided it was time to reveal something I'd been keeping to myself. Throughout this entire ordeal, I'd been trying to stay low profile to avoid drawing attention to the real reason I was traveling. But Karen's relentless attacks had pushed me past the point of caring about operational security. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a particular contact. Then I handed the phone to the older security officer. Sir, if you need additional verification of my identity and my reason for travel, you can speak directly to my commanding officer. He's expecting my call anyway. The officer looked at the contact information and his eyebrows rose slightly. This is a direct line to Randolph Air Force Base Command. Yes, sir. Colonel Patterson is my CO. He can verify everything you need to know about my service record and current assignment. Karen was still sputtering in the background, but I could see her confidence starting to crack as she realized that the situation was slipping away from her control. The security officer made the call, stepping aside for a brief conversation. When he returned, his entire demeanor had changed. He handed me back my phone with something approaching respect. Master Sergeant, Colonel Patterson sends his regards and asked me to tell you that your daughter called the base looking for you. Something about graduation rehearsal tomorrow." My heart clenched. Emma had been trying to reach me. I'd been so focused on getting through this airport Karen drama that I'd missed her call. "Thank you, sir. I'll call her as soon as this is resolved." The security officer nodded, then turned to address the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a misunderstanding that's now been cleared up. Master Sergeant Rodriguez is a decorated military service member traveling on official orders, and his ticket is completely legitimate." A murmur went through the crowd, and I could see people's expressions changing as they processed this information. The businessman who'd defended me earlier nodded approvingly. Even faced with complete verification of my identity and credentials, she seemed incapable of admitting she'd been wrong. "This doesn't change anything," she declared, her voice becoming increasingly shrill. Military or not, he was still rude to me. He refused to give up that seat when I asked politely. Captain Mitchell stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of 15 years of military leadership. "However, your behavior has been disruptive and discriminatory throughout this entire incident." "Discriminatory? How dare you accuse me of discrimination? I was simply trying to maintain proper airport standards. You assumed he didn't belong in first class based solely on his appearance," Captain Mitchell replied calmly. "You accused him of theft, fraud, and harassment without any evidence. You demanded security verification that you wouldn't have requested from someone who fit your preconceived notions of what a first-class passenger should look like." The truth of those words hung in the air, and I could see several passengers nodding in agreement. Karen looked around desperately, searching for support that was rapidly evaporating. I was just being cautious. In today's world, you can't be too careful. "No, ma'am," said a voice from the crowd. It was an elderly gentleman, probably in his 70s, wearing a Korean War veteran cap. "You were being prejudiced, and you owe this young man an apology." A woman with a toddler on her hip spoke up next. "I watched the whole thing. He was nothing but polite to you, even when you were being horrible." More voices joined in, passengers who'd witnessed the entire confrontation finally speaking up in my defense. The tide was turning, and Karen could feel it. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice cracking with frustration. "I'm a paying customer. I have rights." "So does he," said the businessman firmly. "And one of those rights is to travel without being harassed and publicly humiliated by someone who thinks they're better than everyone else." That's when the gate agent's supervisor arrived, a woman in her 40s with the bearing of someone who'd dealt with difficult passengers before. She'd obviously been briefed on the situation because she walked directly to where our group was gathered. "I understand there's been an incident," she said, her voice professional but firm. "Could someone fill me in on what's happened?" Captain Mitchell stepped forward. "I can provide an objective summary." Master Sergeant Rodriguez was sitting in the general seating area, waiting for his flight, when this passenger began demanding that he move because she wanted his seat. When he politely declined, explaining that it was general seating, she escalated the situation by accusing him of various crimes and demanding security intervention. The supervisor nodded, taking notes, "And his ticket is valid." "Completely valid," the gate agent confirmed. "First-class seat, properly purchased. All documentation checks out." Karen immediately jumped in. "But you need to understand the broader context. People like him shouldn't be in first class. It creates confusion and security concerns." The words hung in the air like a confession. Several passengers gasped audibly, and even Karen seemed to realize she'd finally said the quiet part out loud. The supervisor's expression hardened. "Ma'am, could I see your identification and boarding pass?" Karen handed over her documents, still trying to justify her position. "I'm a platinum member of your frequent flyer program. I've been loyal to this airline for years. I expect better treatment than this." The supervisor examined Karen's boarding pass carefully. "Mrs. Henderson, I see that you're booked in seat 1 to B. That's in the main cabin, not first class." "What?" Karen snatched the boarding pass back, staring at it in disbelief. "That can't be right. I always fly first class, according to our records. You purchased a main cabin seat approximately 2 hours ago. There are no first-class seats available on this flight." The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Karen had been demanding that I give up my seat in general seating, claiming it was hers by right, while she didn't even have a first-class ticket herself. "This is a mistake," she insisted. "Check your computer. I requested an upgrade." "Ma'am, requests for upgrades are not guarantees. And even if you had been upgraded, it wouldn't entitle you to claim general seating areas or harass other passengers." The crowd was murmuring now, and I could hear people putting the pieces together. Karen had been acting like she owned the first-class cabin when she wasn't even booked in it. But the supervisor wasn't done. "Mrs. Henderson, based on witness accounts and the disruption you've caused, I'm going to need to discuss your continued travel on this flight." "What does that mean?" Karen's voice was getting higher and more panicked. "It means we're considering whether you'll be allowed to board. Passengers who create disturbances, make false accusations, and harass other travelers may be denied boarding for safety reasons." The color drained from Karen's face. "You can't do that. I have somewhere important to be. My sister's wedding is tomorrow." "You should have thought about that before you decided to publicly humiliate a decorated military service member," said the elderly veteran from the crowd. Captain Mitchell approached the supervisor. "Ma'am, if I may, Master Sergeant Rodriguez has shown remarkable restraint throughout this incident. He's been professional and respectful, despite being subjected to discriminatory treatment and false accusations." The supervisor nodded. "I can see that. Master Sergeant, I want to personally apologize for what you've experienced today. This is not the level of service we strive to provide." I was about to respond when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma's number, and my heart jumped. I'd missed her earlier call, and she was probably worried. "Excuse me," I said to the group. "This is my daughter. She's graduating tomorrow." I stepped aside to take the call, my hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline of the confrontation of it. "Dad," Emma's voice was small and worried. "I called the base, and they said you were traveling. Are you okay? You didn't answer when I called before." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Just had a little delay at the airport. Nothing to worry about." "How was rehearsal?" "It was good, but Dad, ... I was scared you weren't going to make it. I know your work is important, but graduation is tomorrow, and I really need you here." My heart broke a little. "Emma, nothing in this world would keep me from being there tomorrow. I'm getting on a plane in about an hour, and I'll be home tonight. I promise." "Really? You promise you'll be there I promise, baby girl. Your graduation is the most important thing in my world right now." I could hear her crying softly on the other end. "I love you, Dad. I can't wait to see you." "I love you too, Emma, more than you'll ever know." When I ended the call and turned back to the group, I found everyone watching me with different expressions than before. The raw emotion in my voice had been impossible to hide, and I think people were finally seeing me as a person rather than just a figure in someone else's drama. Karen was standing off to the side now, looking isolated and defeated. The crowd, that had initially been neutral or even somewhat supportive of her complaints, had completely turned against her. The supervisor was speaking quietly with the security officers, and I caught fragments of their conversation about disruptive passenger protocols and potential flight restrictions. Captain Mitchell approached me. "Everything okay with your daughter?" "She's graduating high school tomorrow," I said. "I've been overseas for 3 months, and I almost missed it. That's why getting home tonight is so important." She nodded, understanding. "Congratulations, Master Sergeant. That's a proud moment for any parent." The supervisor returned to our group, her expression serious. "Mrs. Henderson, after reviewing the incident and consulting with security, we've made a decision about your travel." Karen looked terrified. "Please, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. I just want to get to my sister's wedding." "The misunderstanding was entirely one-sided," the supervisor replied firmly. "You made false accusations against a fellow passenger, created a public disturbance, and showed discriminatory behavior that violates our passenger conduct policies. But however," the supervisor continued, "Master Sergeant Rodriguez has requested that we allow you to continue your travel, provided you agree to certain conditions." Everyone turned to look at me in surprise. I hadn't spoken to the supervisor about Karen's situation, but apparently my earlier conversation with the security officers about wanting to avoid further delays had been passed along. Master Sergeant Rodriguez pointed out that he just wants to get home to his daughter's graduation, and further delays would impact all passengers on this flight. He's asked us to resolve this situation with minimal additional disruption. Karen stared at me in shock. You asked them to let me fly." I looked at her for a long moment before responding. "Ma'am, I don't know what's going on in your life that made you feel like you needed to attack a stranger today. But I do know that keeping you from your sister's wedding won't make anything better for anyone." She started crying then, not the angry tears of frustration she'd been shedding earlier, but what looked like genuine remorse and shame. I don't understand," she whispered. "After everything I said to you, after everything I accused you of, why would you help me?" "Because that's what we do," I said simply. "We help people, even when they don't deserve it, especially when they don't deserve it." The supervisor nodded approvingly. "And any further incidents will result in immediate removal and potential legal action." Karen nodded frantically. Yes, of course. Thank you, and Master Sergeant Rodriguez. I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. You're a better person than I am." The crowd began to disperse as the gate agent announced that boarding would begin in 15 minutes. Several passengers came up to shake my hand or thank me for my service. The elderly veteran saluted me, and the mother with the toddler told her little boy to say thank you to the nice soldier. Captain Mitchell waited until the crowd thinned before approaching me one last time. That was well handled, Master Sergeant. Your daughter should be proud of the man her father is. Thank you, ma'am. I just hope I get to see her walk across that stage tomorrow. You will, she said confidently. And Miguel, when you get back from leave, call me. I might have an opportunity that would keep you closer to home. It was Karen, looking small and embarrassed. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, I wanted to apologize again, properly this time. I don't know what came over me. I've been under a lot of stress lately, but that's no excuse for the way I treated you. I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse there. We all have bad days, ma'am. What matters is what we do next. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm going to do better, I promise. And I'm going to think about today for a long time. Just treat people with kindness, I said. That's all anyone really wants. When boarding began, I was among the first to get on the plane. As I settled into, I'm too excited. I love you, Dad. Thank you for keeping your promise. The confrontation with Airport Karen felt like it had happened to someone else. All that mattered now was getting home to Emma, the flight attendant. A kind-looking woman in her 50s stopped by my seat. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, I heard about what happened at the gate. I wanted to personally thank you for your service and for the way you handled that situation. Just doing what felt right, I said. Well, it meant something to everyone who witnessed it. Sometimes people need to see what real character looks like. As we reached cruising altitude, I closed my eyes and thought about Emma walking across that graduation stage. I thought about all the moments I'd missed while serving overseas, and all the moments I was looking forward to now that I might be stationed closer to home, somewhere behind me in the main cabin. Karen was probably thinking about her own family, her sister's wedding, and the lesson she'd learned about judging people based on appearances. We're making good time tonight. We should be arriving in San Antonio about 20 minutes ahead of schedule. I smiled and pulled out my phone to text Emma one more time. Coming home early, baby girl. See you soon. Her response made my heart swell. I'll be waiting, Dad. I'm so proud to be your daughter. Tomorrow, I would watch my daughter graduate, and tonight, I'd learn something important about grace, forgiveness, and the power of treating people with dignity even when they don't deserve it. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing someone what they could be if they chose to be better. As we descended toward San Antonio, I realized that Airport Karen had given me something unexpected, a reminder of who I wanted to be as a father, as a soldier, and as a human being. The plane touched down smoothly, and as we taxied to the gate, passengers began standing and gathering their belongings. The businessman who'd defended me earlier stopped by my seat. Master Sergeant, I wanted to say thank you. You showed my teenage son something important today about how real men handle conflict. Your son was there. He nodded toward a young man a few rows back. He watched the whole thing. Tonight, he's going to go to bed having seen what honor looks like in action. As I walked through the airport toward baggage claim, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, this is Sarah Henderson. My mom told me what happened today and how kind you were to her, even after the way she treated you. I'm a teacher, and I'm going to use your story to talk to my students about courage, character, and forgiveness. Thank you for being an example of the best in people. Ps. I hope your daughter's graduation is everything you both hoped for. I smiled and typed back, tell your mother that people deserve second chances, and I hope she enjoys the wedding. When I finally walked out of the airport and saw Emma waiting for me in the pickup area, still in her pajamas at midnight because she couldn't sleep, I knew that everything I'd been through that day had been worth it. She ran to me with tears streaming down her face, and I held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and feeling like the luckiest father in the world. Did you really almost miss the flight because of some crazy lady? She asked as we drove home. Nah, I said, squeezing her hand. Nothing in this world could have kept me from being here tomorrow. Nothing. And as we drove through the quiet streets of San Antonio toward home, I realized that sometimes the worst days turn into the most important ones. Sometimes the people who try to tear you down end up reminding you exactly who you're meant to be. Tomorrow, Emma would graduate. Tonight, a stranger had learned about second chances. And I had learned that the best way to defeat hatred and prejudice isn't with anger or revenge, it's with grace, dignity, and the quiet strength that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. The airport Karen drama was over, but the lessons would last a lifetime.